You are listening to Fika with Vicky on United Public Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 from New Orleans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fika. Today, our returning guest is Mark Ryan, an author, actor, singer. Excuse me. We were doing too much talking before, Mark. Action director, producer, and more. I say more because it is impossible to fit all of Mr. Ryan's 45 years of work into one introduction. This is his third visit to Fika, and I'm still learning more about that work. For example, did you know that he wrote the music and lyrics for a musical adaptation of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, and then he sang for it and produced it and even directed a video for it. I didn't know till this week. You see, we all discovered Mark in different ways. I discovered him through my love of the Wildwood Tarot, others through their love of Robin of Sherwood, or Transformers, Black Sails, or Evita. But in the end, we grow to appreciate all of his work and even be inspired by it and him. Thank you for the inspiration and entertainment, Mark, and welcome to Fika.
I am a veritable potpourri of flavors and eclectic thoughts. That's
it's all over the place. I have 2 pages for other guests. For you, I have a folder. Okay.
Yeah, the most wanted. If you see this man, please call this police line or whatever. Yeah, well, I've tried. I mean, and it was never my ambitions to be rich or famous. It was to live, and I got asked that a little while ago, about my time in Evita, and somebody was saying about, you were a pretty intense character in those days, and I said, well, please forgive me if I was. I didn't mean to be. I wasn't ambitious to be famous or anything. I just wanted to do as much as I could and cram it in this 70 years and 10 as much as I could, and so I just literally went at life head first, like a rhino bull in a china shop, and seem to have ended up doing so many odd and different things that it's and it's still going on. It hasn't ended yet.
I can see that because there's 2024 is just building up to be a very busy year for you. There's so much going on.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, last year was because of the strike. Last year seemed to be very sluggish, and I'd made the move from LA to Las Vegas because I have a little property there. So I'd moved basically out of LA and moved into Las Vegas because the business has become a moving circus. It doesn't matter really where you are in the world now. We wanted to locate ourselves here in the Netherlands on a more regular basis because of our Georgina, my daughter, who is 3, next month, as you already know. And so I wanted to stabilize that first and have all that sort of sorted out before I decided to go throw myself into more adventures, which is worked out fine. And this year seems to have kicked off already. Quite well. So you just got to keep going.
And speaking of living a more stabilized life in the Netherlands for Georgina, you have a production coming up, 23 letters
Yes.
from Vincent van Gogh.
Yep.
And that was completely filmed in the Netherlands, and you not only act in that, but it's also one of you've started producing, and it's on. You've done that as well with that.
It was a natural progression because in the film side of my career, I'd done so many things on the set, like as a fight coordinator, swordmaster, whatever. You get to learn the set, obviously as an actor, and again I'll say this because it's true. As an actor, you stood there, you're focused very much on the performance and what you're doing. So you have to kind of blank out what's going on behind the camera and just get on with trying to keep that ball of reality, you know, alive and focused. You know, there's a great story that we may have talked about it, about advice from Anthony Hopkins, which is true. But you're trying to suck the audience into your thought processes as an actor, so that they see the world through your eyes, as even though they're looking at you. And so you tend to be very focused on that. Whereas as other jobs that I've done, whether it's a second unit director or whatever, you become very much aware of the other life behind the camera, which is trying to get everybody in the right place at the right time with the right power and the right lighting and the right props and everything else. There's a whole other world that goes on behind the camera. And obviously I'd learned that process a lot, and particularly on Transformers. You know, 5 films with Michael, I was behind the camera a lot, stood right next to him, you know, for almost 10 years, on and off. So you learn how that works. And so when you get a little bit older and you may not be right for this part or that part or whatever part, the people will come to you and go, well, can you help us with this? Or can you help us with that? Can you ask, so would you ask him to come and work on the film? So it was a natural progression to move into production, in terms of executive producing or helping to get the film to completion, regarding advice on editing and casting and that kind of stuff. So I've kind of moved into that universe.
The business aspect of it, like getting it done. I mean, I don't mean the big, banking stuff, but seeing it as the production, producing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's the future, to be honest with you. I mean, having worked in that arena of, the $250 million pictures, and as much fun as that is, there's an awful lot of pressure from studios. You know what I mean? They've all these different energies pulling productions in different directions. The smaller independent films, you have a much more, in a weird way, you have more control, and you have a much more personal relationship with the actors and everybody else, the crew that's involved around it. And I've always enjoyed that. I mean, the last couple of films that I did in the States before I came over, Street and Any Bullet Will You Do, Any Bullet You Will Do, were both small budget, but focused on a very specific area. That one was a martial arts film, was a Western. And you can make a decent film for not for $250 million, which becomes somebody's favorite. And I'm trying to bring that ethos into the Frisian filmmaking process, where I am at the moment. I'm in a part of Netherlands called it's Frisia, where Frisian cows and Frisian horses and Frisian milk, and the Frisians are the tallest people on the face of the planet, as my wife is witness to. They are the tallest people here, something to do with the diet. But they're trying to launch an independent film industry here, and I'm pretty committed at the moment in seeing if we can help do that.
So we may be seeing more movies from the Netherlands that you're involved in.
I hope so, and I hope that, like with 23 Letters, just to give you the background to that, Van Gogh obviously was a very interesting man. I mean, he had his issues, and as we know, and everybody thinks of Van Gogh as Starry, Starry Night and all that kind of stuff. But before he became that Van Gogh, he was also a Dutch Van Gogh who painted people working in the fields and eating potatoes and cutting peat and that kind of stuff, because obviously
down to earth stuff,
very earthy, very dark. And from his first art is very monochromatic and it's very detailed, and all of the signature things are there, but there's not a lot of color. That's because he couldn't afford the color. And the 23 Letters refers to his time spent in a place called Drenthe, where he really honed his artistic skills. And Drenthe is a very much sort of like, well, it's funny because I'm playing an Irish character in this, but it's very much as a peat cutting part of the country, very, very rural, very hard life. People lived in houses made literally of logs of grass, and their roofs were thatched with grass and stuff like that. And it was a hard, very dark life. And he wrote 23 letters to his brother. What all we really know about it, what are the pictures that he painted, and some of the references by some of the friends that were here. Well, there's parts of his time in Drentham that nobody knows about. So we've taken a few liberties with that, and we know that he got into taking absinthe and partying with the local Romani tribes and stuff like that. And it was a very bohemian lifestyle. He was trying to build an art colony, and so there was people from all over the world traveling backwards and forwards, and the environment was very tough. So he painted these amazingly, like the Potato Eaters, which is a very detailed picture of these people just sitting around eating potatoes. But it was the spark that launched the Van Gogh that the world kind of knows and recognizes as Starry, Starry Night, and these colors and these explosions of creativity. So that's what the film is about. And we're very lucky to be filming in the very places that he actually painted.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's and it makes it even more. Now, are you filming in English or are you filming in?
They're filming in Dutch. But one of the things I've been very interested in seeing evolve is that I'm playing an Irish character, so my dialogue will be in English. And Van Gogh actually spoke perfect English. He went to London. He spent a lot of time in London, so he spoke in English fluently. So it gives us a chance to broaden that audience out to an English-speaking audience. And it's a discussion we've had here a lot about, well, do you make the film entirely in Dutch and use subtitles on other projects that I'm working on? And I'm all for, I'm an advocate of opening the film up to a widest audience as possible. Because I know people, in fact, my, Lutina, she will watch stuff in Korean, in Swedish. I mean, languages are impenetrable.
Oh, now with yeah.
So there's no reason why you can't do it in just about any language. But I like that. I've got one project which has got Germans in it, Dutch in it, English in it. There could be French in it as well. And I was asked, well, how do you would you shoot this? I said, well, you shoot it in the languages. And nowadays, digitally, you just drop the subtitles in underneath wherever the territory is
Right.
that you've sold the project to. And people are quite used to. But in Europe, in America, I don't know, not so much. However, with the success of Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that, I think people are now watching television from around the world. If it looks good and it draws you in, I don't think they worry about subtitles at all. They just get into the story.
I would much rather have subtitles than bad dubbing. Okay, this is the mouths not connecting.
Yeah,
bother me, but subtitles. The only thing is you can't make supper while you're listening to it, right? You have to sit and watch that. But usually if they have subtitles, they're worth it. So
yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's a visual medium. You can tell stories. Nasir, you tell, as I said to Kip Carpenter, he said, I've got no dialogue for you. I said, I don't need the dialogue. I said, it's a visual medium. Give me the action. I will get the character to speak through his actions, through what he does and the way that he does it, as opposed to giving me large reams of dialogue, which nobody's going to listen to anyway, because it's in Arabic. So, I'll get him to speak through his physical actions on the screen. So,
and we knew that when a certain expression came, those knives were coming out. Okay. It was like, here they come.
Knives are out. I've still got them. They're in storage at the moment in Las Vegas. So I'm about to ship them back into the house. So, yeah, I've still got them. They're very close to my heart, so to speak.
So do you have any idea when that will be coming out?
We want to have it completed this year. So hopefully we will have some kind of a premiere later on this year. But we are kind of at the mercy of the weather, which is very changeable here at the moment, this time of the year. We wanted some of it to look very wintry, which of course it does, because we've just been through a very dark wintry period. And all of the masters used to come here to paint because of the light. If you saw Turner, it was directed by Mike Lee, who I worked with on the Peterloo movie. If you see that film, there's loads of pictures of Turner coming to Netherlands to paint because of the light, and because I think of the amount of moisture that's in the air. On a good day when the sun rises in the spring, anyway, the colours in the sky are just the most amazing, and the clouds are just incredible. So we're trying to, we're a bit at the mercy of the weather and the way that the sky appears. We're trying to try and capture that. Excuse me, and also because of the actual locations, we have to shoot there when they're available and when they don't have tourists turning up and wanting to watch the whole thing. Excuse me. I've got hiccups now. I've got a bit of a testing. I apologize to anybody watching.
I'm dealing with allergies. It's particularly, for some reason, warm here during February, which doesn't happen. So
No, sorry, no, I've got the cough thing here that's going on at the moment. So I apologize. You've got allergies?
Yes. That's why I read so much. I can't go play with the other kids. Dave would like to know, as a fight coordinator, do you ever sit down and watch a movie and pick it apart? Is that how you hold a sword and yells at the? Is that how you hold a sword and yells at the TV? Lots of laughs. So, have you come a bit of a critic while watching these types of things?
It really is. Excuse me. It's a double-edged sword, because watching some fight sequences, and I do actually sit and study fight sequences. I'll sit and watch, particularly if it's shot with one camera and they don't edit into it. I'm fascinated by how people stage stuff like that. So yeah, I will watch it and I'll sit and I'll go, oh, how did they do that? How did they get away with that? Or they come up with ideas that, you know, I wouldn't have thought of. So, but in some of this stuff, I really do have to switch off that kind of my brain and just get into the film for the film's sake. And I think probably the last one that I sat and watched was the last Bond film, you know, No Time to Die. And I really, really wanted to see the film as a film. An Equalizer 3, that was the last one I kind of looked at and went, you know, these are tight, very intense fight sequences. And I wanted to just be entertained by the film. So I was trying very much to keep that part of my head out of it all. But every now and again you go, oh, no, that looks good. Oh, well, they did that fine. God, how did they get away with that? You know, oh, that looks great. You know, that's CGI. That's sadly, one of the things, having worked on some of these big productions, that you look at sometimes and go, dodgy CGI, shouldn't have done that. Maybe you should have tried and do it this way or that way, whatever. And it's not a criticism, because I understand how difficult.
It's just your work.
Yeah, you kind of like, it would be like electricity.
It's your work, and you're bound to do that.
And it's the constraints.
Yeah, no, you have to. So we know that you're a nice person, Mark, and that you wouldn't just sit there and laugh at people like Dave suggested. That you are critiquing for the good of all and the future. So as I said, you're an action director, a sword master. You coordinate the dance between the people as they're getting it together there. That started with Robin of Sherwood?
It actually,
or was it early?
Yeah, it actually was early. It's funny because one of the groups I'm a member of online is about Evita, and there's a West End group as well that I got, I'm going to say, dragged into. I was pushed into anyway by some of the folks that work in the West End. And one of the first things, the reason that they invited me to be a part of the group, was because first thing I look at when I open it is a show called Dean, about the life of James Dean, which was my first West End show. And so there was a West End show, 77, about the life of James Dean, and I played all the bad guys in James Dean's life, including Vic Damone, who was the bloke that stole Pier Angeli away from him. So, and we did the knife fight from Rebel Without a Cause around the observatory in Los Angeles, which was one of the first places I had to go to when I visited Los Angeles, 79. was the observatory and Griffith's Observatory, and stand on the same hallowed ground where James Dean had done that knife fight. And the choreographer, the dance choreographer, was trying to choreograph this fight. Lovely bloke, and it just didn't look right. And I had to do the fight with James Dean, and it just wasn't very aggressive. And we had these flick knives that actually didn't flick. So one of them kept just jamming up every time, tried to pop the thing out. The blade would just not come out. So, but we tried doing it. And one day we're trying to work something, and he basically just said to me, he said, "Do you think you can do better than that?" And he was tossing the knife from hand to hand like this. And I said, "Well, you wouldn't do that for a start." And he said, "Well, what makes you think? Because you don't know now which hand it's going to use." He's doing like this. And as he went to toss it, I just got my knife and flicked it out of midair across the rehearsal room. I said, "Now I'm the only one with the knife, right?" And he was like, "Maybe you should do this. Maybe you can choreograph this." I said, "Okay." So I ended up choreographing this.
Oh, really? And how old were you then? Like, you were so young when you were starting out on the West End.
I left Doncaster probably when I just turned 18. And I wanted to throw my hat into the ring at a very, very early age. I've been working the clubs since I left school at 15. So I was out on the road. I'd got my own car, my own sound equipment, and I was touring all over Britain, Scotland and Wales and the Northeast, and obviously all over Yorkshire, working the working men's clubs. And that alone is a piece of history, cultural history in Britain, which is, there's been a couple of shows that capture it. Phoenix Nights, it was a show that caught some of the glimmer of what life really was like in those working men's clubs. But to me, it was a fantastic formative experience musically, because if you can get a club audience on your side, trust me. The first time I worked in a theatre, a Panto in Manchester, I was in shock because the seats were actually facing the stage. I remember looking out and going, "Oh, all the seats are actually facing the stage. They're not. People are not got their backs to you and throwing bottles at you." So
sitting there talking while you're singing.
I've worked stages where they have metal spikes sticking out the front like ramparts, and to make them look quite not so, intimidating, they wrap plastic foliage around to hide the fact that there was spikes sticking.
What if you trip over a wire? That's the end of your career. Oh my goodness!
It's happened. These things happen, and so it was a baptism of fire, but it was an experience that if you can survive that, as Ronnie Cass said to me, one of my first managers, if you can survive that, you can survive anything. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from it, and so that was my formative experience. And I just wanted to go to London and be involved in the business there. Again, I had no particular ambition. I didn't. It wasn't in my head, "Oh, I want to be in the West End." I just wanted to be the best singer that I could be, and take it as far as I could, and just ran headlong at the business. And so Dean was my first West End musical, which didn't last very long, but again, it was good experience. And the next musical was Evita, which of course changed my life. So that's how that happened.
And that and that's why it's difficult to recognize pictures of you from Evita. Because you're like such a baby. Like, you're just like 23, 22 in some of these pictures.
I think I was 21. I think I was either 20 or 21, about 22. I think when Evita opened, I was 23, maybe. And I did 4 years, so 23, 25. I'd have been about 27 or 28 when we did Robin and Sherwood. And in between that, I'd gone to Africa. That's how the other mad half of my life opened up, because Ronnie had got me a gig, thinking it was all going to be me singing in cabaret clubs and stuff like that in Zambia. And so I basically went and was singing, Maria in a war zone, and doing songs from the shows and doing cabaret stuff in the middle of a secret clandestine war between the CIA, MI6, the Russians, the KGB, the Chinese, you name it, they were all there. And so that's what changed, again, my view of the world politics, and how things work on the dark side. And I came back with that experience and then was straight into Dean and Evita.
So if people asked if you were nervous at that age, being in a Hal Prince original production, I would think it would be very calming after the other experiences you had entertaining out there.
These are one of the things that when I teach stuff and lecture, because I'm invited to talk at schools and stuff like that now about acting, and people that are trying to start out in the business. What's your advice? And Ray Winston said something some years ago. We were sitting around a dinner table, and might have been Clivey and Ray and Jason Connery and a couple of others. We're just shooting stuff about our careers and what we'd had a chance to do. And I said something like, "Oh, we've been lucky. We've been so lucky." And Ray said, "Nah, Marky, yeah, you're not lucky, Tom. You make your own luck." And I said, well, all right, well, then if we're not lucky, then we've been fortunate. I said, if you think of all the barriers that there are in this business to get from point A to point B, you know what I mean? All those hurdles, all the things that are in the way that challenge you to get, on in this game. I said, we've been fortunate. He said, Marky, there's always hurdles and boundaries in life. He said, the difference is we just didn't see them and we went straight through them. And I literally took a week after that, looking back on my career up to that point and thinking, when did I actually think ever, I can't do that? And I'll be honest with you and say, I never once I decided I was going to do that and I was going to go that way, it never occurred to me that I couldn't do it, that I wouldn't be able to do it. And I'd get there in the end. And it's been like that. And there is basically, I have my own scientific philosophical framework about that. If you want to hear it, if your listeners would be interested about creating.
Well, I would because but first I want to just say hello to Tamara. Tamara says hi. Thanks for joining us, Tamara. And I'm listening to you. Before you get to the scientific aspects of this, I'll go with the Wildwood Tarot, more spiritual ones. Is that like you talk about putting all your energy into a point, and you talk about being intense, but you were putting all your energy into that work, that this is where I want to go and this is where I want to be, and you have to do that to do those things, because they do take you away from, I don't want to say the real world, but the yeah, it takes you away from the real world of those guys in the men's clubs, right?
Well, I know sometimes now, because again, I've had a couple of people, I won't name names, who have come up to me over the last couple of years and basically insulted me to my face and said, you were pretty intense in those days. And I had to look back at it and I thought about it and I went, I may well have been. And it's almost a kind of blinkered thing. And I don't mean that to sound like ignorance. Again, it wasn't that I was ambitious to be rich or famous or anything. I just wanted to live. I just wanted to
experience
an experience and be able to bring that into other things. I didn't want to be just an actor. And I know that, again, I get sort of flack for saying things like that sometimes because, oh, no, it's all about the acting. What makes you a better actor is experience, is your life experiences. And you're able to absorb loss, pain, and all of that kind of stuff and turn that into emotion that you can bring onto a screen. And again, to go back to the advice from Anthony Hopkins, it's all in here. An audience is going to be able to look at you and they will decide whether they like you or not, depending on the part that you're playing. And so if you're trying to play a part like Gates, you have to bring that energy to it in the sense that you're trying to deal with an unfolding disaster, basically, and an unfolding conflicts all the time, not just with Flint, but with other people. And so as a non-commissioned officer in the British Army, as I got to learn how to manage up to the bosses and down to the guys that I was.
I guess so. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right in the middle. Yeah, you have to get along with both sides.
You have to be able to speak truth to power, and you also then need to get the guys that you're hoping to do the stuff for you to do what you ask them to do or tell them to do, and they have to trust you. And it's the same with an audience. An audience looks at a character, and they read you and your body language and your eyes and the way that your processes unwind as a character. And you've got to be able to try and do that. And there's no point in trying to do that without experience and background. You have to be able to dig in there somewhere and invent and find that elements of humanity that they can relate to.
Now, speaking of Robin, I'll get to your question just a minute, but I have something powerful to say. I'm going to say, speaking of taking characteristics and experiences and putting them into a role. Okay. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows in Mark's acting.
No.
There are bad guys. And recently he posted on his site a video of him playing a gentleman, and I use that term loosely, called Johnny in a cop show called... What was that called? Yes. Some years ago. And I can take murderers, I can take whatever on the screen, but Johnny was a bully. Johnny, for lack of a better word, was a punk. I was so mad at Johnny. I was just like, I will never be able to look at Mark again after watching this. Like, I'll just see Johnny. And what it did was show what a fantastic actor you are to make me so angry with the screen. But no, he was mean, Mark.
I played a couple of those characters. I played one for a show called Dempsey Makepeace, same sort of thing. But this guy, had guns, so it was even worse because he was a bully with a gun. And obviously, I enjoy being able to rip those characters, up and go for it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, John, and that was a show called The Bill, and it was a legendary show here in the UK. Well, here in Europe, and the UK, because they basically ran out of actors. They hired every actor that was possibly available, and so I actually played 3 different bad guys in 3 episodes over the period of about 4 years or something, 5 years. Every now and again they go, we haven't got anybody to play this. You could be another bad guy. And so I get made up and put on a different costume and be another bad guy. So I played John several times, but in different
roles. Yeah. You did him very well. I really, yes. He'll stay with me for a while. Robin would like to know, hi, Mark. It's amazing what you have accomplished in your career. Was wondering what your most enjoyable time working on all these movies would be. He's got to be careful how he answers that.
It sounds like a cop-out, but it's actually true. I've enjoyed just about everything I've been involved with because it's a different process. It's like somebody asked me about, you did Evita for 4 years. I played Schaefer for 2 years. Didn't you get bored? I said, no. I didn't get bored at all because every audience is different. And when you're actually playing a part like Shane, you're interacting with an audience. There's like this strange secret communication between what you're doing on stage and that black mass of people out there. It's almost like a Jungian collective subconscious pool of energy. And somehow if you switch that, you can feel it. And so to me, the audience was different every night and every matinee. So I can honestly say I never got bored. Every show was different. I always tried to play it differently, 8 shows a week. Depending on how the audience reacted. And so I can honestly say it's all, to me anyway, I've had in the same amount of pride, fulfillment, whatever you want to say, watching Stellan Skarsgård and Mads Mikkelsen complete a fight, which I've choreographed, right? And do it in this beautiful way and have an emotional impact on the film. I've had as much yes out of that as standing on a stage myself, or being being a character like Nasir. It's to me, it's all part of the same process. And so I can honestly say there's not one area, whether it's theatre or film, television, or even producing, that you go, we pulled that off.
It's all
Right?
creative.
It's
It's
all
all
part of that creative ball, and it's all satisfying. I mean, there are memorable moments. I once did a little series of what they call Night at the Proms with the London Philharmonic. And I can't remember exactly where we were, but I was invited by a chap called Albie, if you're out there somewhere, and he invited me to go and sing. He said to me, I want you to sing Jerusalem. I did those feet in ancient times, basically. And we went to this, and I didn't realize it was going to be, there was maybe 10,000 people in the grounds of this stately home with a 70-piece orchestra. And I got up and I sang Jerusalem. There's a couple of pictures of it. And I sang it not in the church sort of style. I sang it like a rock song. And I think the orchestra, which we used to opera singers standing up and singing this, I sang it like a rock opera. And there's pictures of the orchestra and the conductor like looking at each other going, this is different. What is this? And I remember looking out into that space, what we just said. There were 10,000 people with their cigarette lighters and their torches, all singing along. So I had 10,000 people, that noise coming this way with 70-piece orchestra behind me. And the power of that, it still sends shivers down my spine when I think about it.
I would think so. Yes.
It was an amazing experience. So there's memories like that, moments like that, lost in time, which nobody else probably will ever remember except me. I go, that was quite something. That was quite a night.
But they're nice to remember. I was thinking, going back to the intensity when you were young. So there you are in your very early 20s, and you said you did 8 shows a week.
Yep.
You are getting yourself at that age to 8 shows a week. This is phenomenal. You need to have a sense of intensity or drive to do something like that at that age.
It was physically very demanding. And again, remember, to quote the show, remember, I was very young then. I was very fit. And you had to be. So we did 5 shows in 3 days. We did 2 shows on Thursday, a Friday night, 2 shows Saturday. And in between that, I'd drive to Wales after doing the show and go and run them down mountains in Wales, then come back on the Monday and go back and do the show on Monday night. So in those days, I was
youth.
pretty fit. And however, it is a bit like doing vocal Olympics. You're putting your voice to it. When we did the film, right. Alan Parker actually reached out to me through the casting people and said, we'd like you to do just something. We don't know what yet, but we'd like you to come on the set and be involved in the film. So I was talking with Anthony Banderas, and Alan Parker introduced us. And he said, so I hear that you spent 4 years in the show, 2 years doing this. And I said, yeah, 5 shows, in 3 days, but 8 shows a week. He said, I couldn't sing the whole thing through once in a day. I said, how did you do 2 in a day? I said, it was hard, but you literally had to remain fit, well, healthy, eat well, no late nights out in the clubs till 5 o'clock in the morning, smoky environments. You had to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a voice like I've got now. I've got no voice.
Well, you have what's going around now, Mark.
I have what's going around now.
What's going around?
Banderas said I couldn't do it. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't do it once, let alone twice in a day. In 3 days, 5 shows. Couldn't have done it. He was lovely. Banderas was great. So yeah, shout out.
So now we know, people. Mr. Banderas is great and a lovely person.
Lovely kid.
Historical Niagara says that fight in King Arthur was legendary. And that whole, you talk about Mads, and he does play a certain kind of role in his stuff. At the end, I was rewatching it the other day. I love this part. At the end, after Clive Owen gives his speech, which is very stirring, and there's that man in the tree that, once again, I don't like a lot of people on TV. I jump the traitor up in the tree, and then Maz just takes that arrow. And that is a classic moment in
The
theater.
best version, funnily enough, is Antoine Fuqua's own version. The director's cut, I think, is a much better film. And there were a lot of things that they changed for the version that originally went out. Antoine was making Gladiator, and Disney obviously were making something not quite as gory. And I kept getting a tap on the shoulder and being told not to put so much gratuitous violence in it. And I said, these are people chopping each other up. What do you want me to do? And
they have axes.
Well, that fight between Mads and I'll tell you how it came about. We were rehearsing some of the fight sequences at Stevie Dent's farm, and Stevie Dent's one of the best stunt coordinators in the world, and he was our horsemaster on Robin Sherwood, of course, and he was a stuntman. He's now one of the best stunt coordinators in the world, and we were rehearsing all the fights there, and I'd given the actors what they call a little kata, which is a martial arts term of an exercise of just moving the sword to getting used to where the sword around their body is, to build this steel cage around their body of deflecting energy in a sword fight. And I saw him, he was in the middle of the film, and he was just moving around himself and just doing this movement. And there's an old Celtic saying, never give a sword to a man who can't dance. And I watched him move, and I went, I went over to him and said, do you mind if I ask you something, man? He said, sure. He said, did you train as a dancer? He went, yeah. He said, I was going to go into ballet. I said, you move like a dancer. He said, I'm going to choreograph something. I'm going to work out a style for you. And in fact, I'm actually going to make you a sword. We're going to make you a special sword. So that extended bladed, it's actually a yangling, what they call a Chinese yangling blade, which flares out just at the end. I had that sword made for Mads, and really, it was all coming together of those elements, the sword, the movement, the way we choreographed it, so I could get all the stunt guys in the right place at the right time. And it worked like a charm. And it was beautiful. And Mads carried it off with such aplomb, was brilliant. Movement of grace. I think it was fantastic. So,
actually, there's a lot of similarities and between him and Nasir, when you think about it. He didn't talk very much. He just got it done, okay, in that movie. And yeah, no, it.
Well, Johan Grothe was the other one. In fact, he publicly actually said, because, of course, they wanted him to have two swords on his back. So he's the one that's doing the two-handed sword fight. And it's one of the reasons I got hired, I suppose, was to choreograph that. And Johan, of course, he had dark curly hair and a dark beard. He looked like me. And so the wardrobe in the department came to me and said, how did you manage this? I said, here's how we did it. And Robin, so the swords didn't keep smacking people on the back of the head when they're riding a horse, because that's what happens. The actual pommels of the sword are smacking you on the back of the head. And so Johan, in one of his interviews, said, little did I know when I took this part, I was actually doing an ode to Mark Ryan and Nasir in Robin of Sherwood. I didn't know I was actually playing. Yeah, Johan was great as well.
Yes, no, that's true. I was only thinking about the not talking. I wasn't thinking about the pulling out of the two swords. Yes, there's a lot to visit just with that show. Catherine Clint would like to says hello. You love history. What is your favorite castle?
Right off the top of my head, it's Bamber Castle. It was a castle that I visited as a child, as a school trip up to Northumberland. And they took us. We did go to Alnwick as well. I like Alnwick as well. It's where Anthony Hopkins and I had that bumped into each other after 30 years of not seeing each other. But Bamber was always, to me, I could walk around those walls and you can feel the history. I mean, you just walk those battlements, and you know that the hundreds of pairs of eyes over centuries have peered out over that beach and over that ocean. You can feel it. It's just magnificent. And you look as an achievement to build what they did on those cliffs. It's just mind-boggling. So right off the top of my head, I'd say Bamber is still today. This is my favourite. Although, you know, Scarborough Castle, I grew up with Scarborough as well, which is not a lot left of that. And even Conisbrough Castle, which was down the road from Doncaster, which is the castle in Ivanhoe. They call it Conisbrough or something.
Oh, what was that one called?
Uh,
What was the last one you said? I was just writing them down. The one connected to Ivanhoe.
Conisbrough Castle. Ivanhoe was written partly in Yorkshire at a place called Sprotbrough, where the Sprotbrough Falls are. And I used to go and do my courting when I was a young man in Doncaster. So Sprotbrough, and there was a cottage there where Walt Scott wrote sort of part of it. Most of it was written in there. And so there was a castle literally up the road called Conisbrough Castle. And as a kid, again, we went to school trips to Conisbrough Castle, got hopped on the bus and visited. I used to do that all the time. So there's, but Bamber still with the sheer presence
Is your favorite of
yeah.
just because of the environment and the way it makes you feel, not for the. And I want to say how wonderful it must be to grow up with all these castles around you. Like that's gotta fire some imagination and creativity right there.
Well, I grew up playing in Sherwood Forest. I know I've said this before over the years. I grew up hiding in the Major Oak. You can't get in there anymore now. It's actually healed the inside of the hollow tree. So I've been told last time we were there, you're not actually allowed to go near it because some idiot set fire to it inside. Some chaos magician or something, we don't know, some drunken fool lit a fire inside the tree, did a lot of damage. It's all grown back, thank goodness. And so you're not allowed. But what's happened is in it growing back, the actual inside of the tree has filled in. So you can't actually get inside the tree. When I was a kid, you could actually climb inside. It was that big. You know, there was room to get 2 or 3 kids inside it. You can't anymore. But I grew up playing in Sherwood Forest.
And if there's a whole section in the Wildwood Tarot, and you talk about it in Holdfast as well. Oh, a little plugging. So you talk about it in Holdfast as well as the Wildwood Tarot, and that was one of the things that really, really interested me because huge Robin Hood fan here ever since Errol Flynn walked out on that branch and said, "Welcome to Sherwood, my lady," and I'm like, okay, I'm there. So it's all fascinating, and now the Ivanhoe, because I was looking through all the stuff you did, and I should make a Mark Ryan reading list, right? So we have Wuthering Heights, and we have there's actually a book, The Letters of Vincent van Gogh, where you can read his letters to his brother Theo, I think it was.
Yeah.
And now I have it up there, Ivanhoe, because Ivanhoe I find is the best Robin Hood story. It hasn't been, Christianized or whatever to make the characters all do what someone thinks they should do. They're very much real in Ivanhoe.
Yeah. Well, I've got one more for you now, because timing, the universe sometimes works in mysterious ways, because I've got another one now to show you.
Yes. I can't show that because it's not in my hands after many years of waiting. Stop it. I think we're supposed to get it April 4th.
Yeah, I got one of the first packs. So
well, you're special.
I'm always the one. My wife says, you're special. She says that. Yeah.
And teasing me with that deck is starting to make you look like Johnny. Okay, I'm gonna start thinking that's something that Johnny would do. But
very pleased with it. The whole package, I have to say. Sterling has done a great job. Kate Zimmerman has done a great job, and it really is.
Are the cards the same size as the Wildwood, or are they bigger?
No, they're about the standard card side in the US. But what we decided to do is do them borderless, which actually I'm always a bit ambiguous about borderless cards. But as you can see, just to sort of see that one, look who there. We've got a Saracen in there. Look, you know what I mean. The actual borderless, the art is so amazing. Linny von Gilbert, who did the art for this, it's so stunning that the border concept went straight out the window, and we went, no, let's show
Right
the
to
art,
the.
as it is. That's Wayland the Smith there. So I can do it without getting a reflection of the
Well,
light.
without the border, you get more picture, but
There
can
you
still
go.
fit it in your hands. Like some decks are really difficult to shuffle because they're bigger. So if you want to use them, is she going to be selling posters for these as well?
I
Like,
hope so. I think Sterling has got plans for marketing some of the artwork in different ways. We have talked about it. Excuse me. I apologize for sniffing and nose wiping and everything else. I'm sure the last thing your audience wants to do is look up my nose. But maybe they do. I don't know.
that audience, whatever you send out there, you can't control how they
Once
digest.
it's out there,
So but somebody's out there saying, "Oh, I am so glad I was not feeling well and I was feeling alone, and now I know Mark has whatever's going on as well, and it just not that I want him to be sick, but I'm feeling like I can go on."
You're glad that I'm sharing your pain. Is that what they're trying to say? Yeah.
Misery loves company. I don't know, Mark. It started off nice and you turned it bad.
Oh, I have to say though, it's vitamin C for me. I go straight on the upload the vitamin C, vitamin D, and of course
Yorkshire tea and
the cure-all, the Yorkshire tea.
and I'm so glad that he has that. We discussed that before because he's not a fraud. He swears by this, and it's it's on his stuff, and he's drinking it. And you said there was a story about how it really truly saved your life at one point.
It did in fact save my life, and I hang by this tale because it is a cautionary tale. Somebody sent me some pictures of the Welsh mountains, the Brecon Beacons, over the weekend on Facebook. They were looking at these pictures, and I think I wrote down, I know exactly what that track is like, because when I was a young man and I was, running up and down these mountains, I used to go on my own and just throw myself up there just to sort of, as you do, rage in the mountains and sleep under the trees. I loved it. That's some of the best night's sleeps I've ever had. Is literally in the trees in Torpanto Wood or up by the mountains there, and the weather turned, and my car was in what they call the Story Arms car park on the other side of the range. And so I'd been into what they call the horseshoe, and I'd been out for 2 or 3 days. So I was trying to get back over this horseshoe to get back to the car park on the other side of the mountain range. And I decided in my cups that I would go basically the quickest route straight up the front, of the mountain, which was stupid. And I should have just gone around the side and up the easier. But
you were young.
I was young, and I thought, well, I've never done this, so I'll try going up this way and see what happens. And Penafan is actually 2 mountain peaks with what they call a saddle in the middle. And the wind comes over that saddle and focuses, and it comes down the side of the mountain doing like 70 miles an hour of wind chill and sleet, and it will literally cut you in half. And people die up there regularly because they think, it looks all green and nice and pleasant, but it will absolutely send you away with hypothermia. And I was trying to get up the front of the mountain. The wind was so strong, I was literally on all fours at one point, literally just trying to crawl up. And I remember sitting and turning my back and my rucksack, my Bergen behind me, and sitting, looking down the mountain and going, this is not going to happen today. There's no way I'm going to be able to get over this. I'm going to have to try. I'll keep going. But the one thing I didn't want to do, and as I was sitting thinking this there, like when you get noddy dog syndrome and you literally nod off micro like this. So I was sitting there and I literally almost fell asleep. And I went,
not good.
And I went, oh, not good. You're going to get hypothermia. So something in my brain clicked, and I literally marched straight back down as fast as I could, back to the woods where I was at the corner of the Roman road there. Got into the trees, threw all my kit on the ground, my bivvy bag and sleeping bag and everything, and I quickly made a cup of tea, Yorkshire tea. Literally, got my little burner going, heated up the water, and got it as hot as it must have been boiling. Made this tea, threw some cream in it, threw this steaming hot tea down my neck where I must have then passed out, because the next thing I remember was waking up in the sleeping bag. I managed to get myself in the sleeping bag, get myself in, and it was very dark, and it was like, middle of the night. So I'd obviously been unconscious for some time, for some hours anyway, and I woke up alone in the middle of this forest. But I woke up, and I've always put it down to the fact that I had steaming hot tea, which kept my core warm.
Warm.
And that's what probably, prevented my body getting too low that I couldn't, and suffering from hypothermia. And I was on
Thank
my
goodness.
own, I was there. So I always put it down to a cup of Yorkshire tea saved my life.
Okay, so first of all, have you contacted the company about doing a commercial to them? It's a perfect slogan, and you can back it up.
Tea saved my life. Yeah.
I think you need to take a sip now. No, just because you're feeling under the weather, Mark. I'm not perfect. It is. Every time I go into the a British shop and I see it, I think of you and your okay. So Tamara asked, what was the worst and best fight scene for you?
Oh, worst and best. What, that I was in or that I choreographed? Or
I think either or, like something that was really difficult or possibly it wasn't going well. Training kind of is more difficult than acting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it can be difficult if the actor's got a thing that they want to do something or make something work. But it's, I go by the Bob Anderson adage in this thing, which is Bob used to have people come up to him all the time on the set when we did First Night, and people would go, he wouldn't do it like that in a sword fight. They're trying to tell Bob Anderson, how to choreograph a sword fight or an action sequence or whatever. And he would go, were you there? You go, well,
That is the answer to anything historical.
were you there? How do you know? How do you know that they didn't use a sword like this? How, there's some historical drawings of people, Taloth, whatever, beating people over the head with the handle of the sword rather than using the blade as the way. But other than that, nobody really knows how it worked. So it worked whichever way it worked. And so historically, I've gone, well, we're not making historical reenactments. We're making film and TV drama. So it doesn't have to be historically correct. The swords don't have to be perfect. They just have to, they're telling the story. And if you're worried about the details of the swords, historical, use of, then we've kind of failed telling the film the story. You know what I mean? Because if you're worried about that, and not
because you're not seeing the whole picture of it, you're just seeing that
Yeah.
sword.
And I like to see the drama. I mean, one of my favorite sword fights, which I didn't do, I just think it's one of the best sword fights ever filmed, is the sword fight in Rob Roy. That sword fight between Tim Roth and Liam Neeson at the end of the film, is one of the best sword fights. It's a very simple sword fight. It's not too long. It is literally just how somebody wears down an opponent until they get the moment to make the strike that they want to. They make like a boxing match, it's tactics. And so that's one of my favorite fights. I didn't choreograph it, but I look at it and go, that's a great piece of drama. And as Stellan Skarsgård said to me on the set when he came, we were going to do his sword fights, I stole from Bob Anderson again. He said, I'm 50-something years old. I chain smoke. I've never done a sword fight. How are we going to approach this? And I said, a sword fight is a drama scene where the blades have the dialogue. It's a drama scene. It's got ups and downs and flows, moments of drama. And you express yourself. Oh, I'm going to get you. Oh, you nearly got me. It's a drama scene. And so all the elements of any play or drama scene are in a sword fight. And you have to choreograph it like that to take the audience through this journey, of going to, well, who's going to win this? and how nasty is he going to get? So I said that to, and he, Stellan said, okay, let's go, let's do it. And so we did.
And is Stalin a nice man as well?
What, Stellan? I don't know his son. I believe he's a very, very good actor. I've seen stuff that he's done, but Stellan is not only a good actor, he's a good bloke to have on the set. Let me tell you, he's a good man.
And he's just everywhere now. Like,
Stellan,
as far as,
isn't he? Good for him.
yeah, no, I like it. Yay, Stalin.
Yay! Shout out, Stellan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Catherine Clint says great choices. So
Thank you.
I
mean, you do fights all the time, and again, it's the constraints: time, money, the actor's skill, the actor's attitude. Sometimes can be difficult. I mean, I have worked with actors that we've gone, we shouldn't put a sword in that man's hand. He's danger to himself and everybody else around him. Not naming names, but I literally have gone, this is going to end badly. And so we had to change stuff to make it safe for the other person in the fight. And you have those moments. So it's not just about making the film work in terms of the visuals of it, but all the other constraints that you have on a film set: rehearsal time, props, space,
weather. I would think, even if you're outside, like making things slippery and what else? But I mean, you have so much experience between Robin of Sherwood, Black Sails, lots of fighting going on there. Working with King Arthur, working with First Knight, working with all of these things. You know.
Let me get into the fights on Black Sails. That was the bizarre thing. I used to sneak in and with the stunt guys and do the fight routines. And I was told, no, don't do that. You're not going to be in any fights. You're too old. So, die or have a stroke or something. So they wouldn't actually put me in any. I did actually get a punch once. That was it.
Yeah, but Hal Gates was not like that. He was such a wonderful character. He was like the father to the other pirates, and I love the writing in that show. They just made one huge mistake, and we all know what that is. After the first season, and
mistake,
it was because Hal was such a beloved character. So yeah, he didn't need to be in sword fights too.
But anyway, I used to sneak down there because obviously the stunt guys knew who I was and what my background was. And eventually one of the producers came down during one of the days to watch something else. And there's, Mad Mark Ryan in the middle of the stunt guys doing sword fight. And I got come here. Don't let me see you down here again. Oh no, I got the curly finger. Not again. You're not insured for it. Come off, get out of the way. Out, go back to the trailer. No, I got sent back. I got the naughty boy. And I didn't want to get the stunt boys in trouble because they were like, I very good stunt team. South African lads, their stunt team was great. And we had good props and they were all fit and stuff. So, the stunt team was great. And
well, it's not only the insurance costs, but if something happened to you and you're supposed to be filming the next day, there's all that hold up and stuff as well, Mark.
I hear you.
But it's you that says if you don't ask, you have to take. And now it's like, don't ask at all. Just go ahead and do it.
Do it. And keep doing it until you get caught. And I got caught. So let me see you down here. Yeah.
Okay,
no.
That's the Mark Ryan words of wisdom for today, children. Yeah. Just do it till you get caught. Yes, I just want to check with you because I will go on. We have the thumbs up to go longer. I just is your throat really bothering you, or are you good to go?
I'm good.
Okay, because you're not. I don't want to be like, talk, Mark, talk when you're not feeling.
The other thing, strepsils are your. Excuse me, sorry everybody. Another advertisement there. Strepsils.
Okay. I would like to put a disclaimer out there. There are no there are no brands financing this show. Okay. But if any would like to,
Yeah.
just give us a call.
Just send me
Oh.
you don't have to pay me. Just send me boxes of Strepsil.
Tamara would like to know what got you interested in tarot. This conversation is very eclectic because what got you interested in tarot, Mark?
I first bought my first tarot deck in Los Angeles at a place called the Bodhi Tree bookstore in 1979, the very first trip I ever did to Los Angeles during Evita. And I'd always been interested in esoteric stuff. Having had, well, I think my entire family have had a history of esoteric weird happenings, and it still happens to this day. It happens to my daughter now, which is even stranger, but it is true. So, and I won't deny something didn't happen simply because it may sound a little bit wacky, but we've always had things happen around us, most of my family, in fact. And I had these things, but you ignore them and you think, oh, it's one of those things in the world. But I had a couple of extremely strange experiences as a boy, as a kid, and as a young man, which were, you kind of put it in its box and go, that's so weird. It's just one of those things. So I was in California, and I got taken by the people that I was staying to this famous Bodhi Tree bookstore. It's not there now; it's been sold. And I was walking around, and there was several decks, and I was interested in the art of it and understanding the psychology of the art. And so one of the first decks that I bought was the Rider-Waite. I think I brought two, the Rider-Waite, and another one they call the Visions Tarot, because I was talking to somebody in the store and he went, well, if you're trying to understand it, this is a modern deck, which it's been derived from Rider-Waite, and you can see how the art has changed, and some people find it very triggering and all that kind of stuff. Well, neither really worked for me, I have to be honest and say both that one and Rider-Waite, which is based on Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic system, I couldn't access them easily in terms of getting a hit off the artwork. I understood the process. I was trying to understand the process of it. And that's one of the reasons why we ended up inventing Greenwood Tarot, basically, or reinventing Greenwood Tarot around the Wheel of the Year system, as opposed to Kabbalah. I don't speak Kabbalah. It never made sense to me. So I tried. But the Wheel of the Year system, because I grew up with that concept of the cycle of the year and the different animals that turn up at the cross-quarter days and all that kind of stuff, it just made total sense. So it's one of the reasons we ended up doing Greenwood Tarot, Jessica Potter and I, was because of that idea. And so then I really got into trying to understand the psychology of it, the science of it. And I say that with total respect. I mean the science of it, and about this concept of creating your own waveform of reality and will. I don't believe in fate. I believe that you create everything, that you go down this pathway, and to be aware of what you do each time you take a step. So the tarot cards lent themselves to as a tool, not just for myself, but for other people. And so that's what got me interested. It was all of the different elements. It was the artwork, the science of it, the psychology of it, the idea of asking a question and letting the universe bring you an answer or a snapshot of a reality, which then you could decide to go with or reject or go in a different direction. And that fascinated me. It still does to this day.
I always think of them as being a heads up. Like, this is possible. You decide what to do with that, or even a second opinion. That's when that's when I'm like, I need a second opinion on this. But I do not think that, I mean, and that's a bit of a controversy over the whole thing, because some people are like, this is your future. And I just see it as guidance. I think just
it's a reflection.
Yeah.
If you extrapolate that out to Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic resonance, and there's a big thing going on at about UFOs and about David Grush, and who's going to find out the truth about disclosure? Have we actually been in contact with aliens and stuff like that? Just to take a quick sidebar, I believe that a lot of the research into parapsychology carried out by the intelligence organizations since the Second World War, because of the success the Brits had with it, to remote viewing and stuff like that, is directly linked to the phenomena of UAP and possibly alien consciousness out there somewhere. And if we can train a guy, a CIA, DIA operative, to send his consciousness to spy on people, come back with detailed, accurate images of what he's seen, then something's working in the human consciousness, which can plug into, whether you use the Jungian thing of it being the human collective subconscious, or Rupert Sheldrake's concept of the morphic field. There's some connection between human consciousness and the universal consciousness. Now, you can dress that up as you like. You can call it God, angels, you can call it...
Well, I mean, it's like there's so many different tarots. Something's going to speak to you. So however you explain that is how it speaks to you.
There you go.
For example, the Wildwood Tarot, I just was drawn to it right away because it's nature. It is the cycle of life as the wheel. The images are real. Will's images are beautiful, but real. There's skulls and there's things. I've been at events and people will say, oh, that's scary. And I'm like, they're not scary. I've never been scared by them. Like, it's just, you walk in the woods, you see a deer skull. Like that is life. So we're all going to see it, to explain probably the same concept in different ways as we know it.
Yeah. My experiences with nature and being in the wild is probably why I resonate so much to, whether you want to call it earthbound energies or natural energies and stuff like that, human consciousness type energies. I resonate to that, but that doesn't mean you can't step outside of that and send your consciousness somewhere else, or at least be able to use your active imagination to experience different types of realities. And I believe as science moves forward, we're going to find that the universe is in a multi-dimensional state, and that we talk to this environment because this is where we grew up as a species. But that doesn't mean there aren't other types of realities out there in the universe that we could possibly communicate with.
And no, and that pops in and out. And if you actually look at things clearly, you can see these things happening in the most, I don't want to say boring, but in just the most regular of lives. There are things that happen that set you back, that are a glitch or whatever you want to call them, that you can't ignore. And so this would explain all that.
Well, and sometimes it takes a bit of I'll tell this story because it's true, and it's one of those things that you go, I don't exactly understand how this works, but I listen to it, because when it happens, I'm kind of like, okay, got it. I've had something throughout my life leave me little marbles, little glass marbles. Wherever I've been, wherever I've lived, in Los Angeles, every now and again, I would find a glass marble. I've had witnesses to this. I've actually had, my wife has witnessed it a couple of times herself and gone, where did that come from? I don't know. I've actually had one drop out of the trees. I put it in Hold Fast about the marble that dropped out of the tree, dropped out of the sky. Well, we think we know. I think we've got a couple of clues who that is and why and all that kind of stuff. So my wife was going skating with my daughter, and she had to go to this area where there'd been a flooded field, and it had frozen over, so there was people skating on the ice, all that kind of stuff. But to get to it, you had to walk through like these meadows, cow meadows, basically, to get to this field. And she was meeting a friend of ours there, and daughter had a skate, and was excited to be on there. So as she was walking through this meadow, about to enter onto this thing, out of nowhere, she heard clink, And one of the pals that was in front of her, literally, as she turned round, this little red marble in the middle of a cow field, in the middle of nowhere, on this frozen plain, rolled across the floor and rolled to my daughter's feet. And so, whoever it is, thank you. They keep sending little messages. So I think my daughter has inherited this, whoever this person is. We think we know who it is, and it's just a little reminder. It's just like there's more to this than you think. There's more. You got to apply yourself, because there's other things out there that you perhaps don't understand and think are impossible. But if you approach it the right way, you might get a little nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, no, a helpful. There are loving entities out there. I mean, people watch horror movies and things like that, and there are times that you feel closer to somebody that has been there in your life, and you can almost feel them there. There are a lot of things that happen in a life, and we don't need to have an explanation to believe that, because we see that for ourselves, right?
We witnessed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can't I mean, I grew up with a story from my grandmother involving the banshee and the death coach, and something that happened in her life. They had twins, and they were very sick during the Depression, and apparently my grandfather came in and said one of them would be leaving them soon, and because he had seen these things. Irish background, yes, so it works.
The banshee is out there.
That's right. So, and it did happen, and there's been other things and other stories and things that have happened to me. So I can't deny that there is something that is out there. I just, you're wrapped around it as a kid with all these stories and everything. You just accept it.
And again, I think one of the problems with things like Skinwalker Ranch is that you're trying to measure something which is almost immeasurable. And the moment that the act of observing the particle changes the particle. So the moment that you actually try to approach it with lasers and all kinds of, firing rockets through it, you're going to get a different result. Some stuff, I suppose, you can measure and you'll go, oh yeah, that means that the temperature went up or down. But you're still no closer to understanding what the communication means, and that's because if it's a morphic living thing, if it's a field, it depends on how you approach it. It depends on what your intention is. It depends on what your goal is. And if you move that way, it may move back or sideways or want to mess with you like a trickster energy or something and give you a poke. And I've no doubt that there are scary things out there as well. I know there are scary things out there as well. But it's that type of understanding. You got to approach it from the human consciousness standpoint. And I've actually emailed backwards and forwards and messaged with Brandon Fugel a couple of times, and I keep saying it's about consciousness, So maybe concentrate a bit more on that. I think they've got a very successful show. I think the show works very well. They don't really want to get it resolved. I don't think they can get it resolved.
Well, that's I was going to say in a very nice way that it's best not to resolve these things and keep people on their edge of their seat and maybe even afraid, in order to keep the views going.
Have you watched the show? Have you seen
yeah, I've seen. When you talked about before, I've seen several episodes of it, and once again, listen. You know how you said that you shouldn't put a sword in everyone's hand. Yeah. I'm thinking after watching that show, you shouldn't put a gun in everyone's hand, because it sort of leads people in a certain direction that I don't think is safe at all. Just regular plane pilots. I'm just thinking. So, when people jump to things and they're afraid of things.
I've got a theory about it all, but nobody's interested. So,
well, let us catch up on a couple questions here, Mark.
Okay, sure.
I'm losing my spot, and then we'll, okay. Tamara agreed that the Rob Roy thing was one of the best fight scenes. Robin says, "Oh, thanks again for a great show, Vicky. Thanks, Mark, and get well. Grab yourself a hot toddy with some Newfie Screech in it. Okay, you know what? But that gets me in trouble because my husband brought up Newfie Screech with Robin last time, and I'm like, don't do that. That's not nice. And now Robin's bringing it up. It's just work after work. Oh." He thought you were going to say, he's leading into something here. He's segueing that you were going to say your favorite fight was the one in the Black Knight with Eric Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which brings us to something that we haven't talked about much, is that your time traveling with Eric Idle, and Eric Idle exploits Monty Python. So we need to discuss that, Mark.
Well, there is a connection for you, because Eric actually wrote to me when they were staging Spamalot, and they were having problems because various people were getting injuries with the sword. And I'd been to see the show, and he wrote to me and said, "We have an issue here with these swords. Can you tell me what you think is wrong? Why are people getting wrist injuries and all kinds of stuff?" And I said, "Well, you've got the wrong swords," which is probably the wrong thing to say to, a Broadway sword choreographer, have somebody like me stick their hook in. But I was asked, so I said, it's the wrong swords. These are steel swords. You can hear they're great big. They're not even a hand and a half. They're two-handed broadswords that he's using, and you can't use it with one hand. They're too heavy. They're blade heavy, and they're steel. I can hear it still. And he said, "Well, what do you use?" I said, "We use an aircraft grade aluminum, either T7, 2627 T7, or what we call the HE30, which is an aircraft grade motorcycle or aircraft grade aluminum. So they're light. You can move it really quickly. It makes a really nice cling when you plug them together. They ring really because it's very pure aluminum. Sometimes they put a copper trace in the metal to make it more pliable, so it's not as brittle. But anyway, he said, "Well, could you fix this?" And I said, "Sure." So I said, "Send me a design of the," they were going to pay me to do it. I said, "Sure." So send me the design of the sword, or a photograph of the sword, and I'll have them copied and made as we would use on a film set, as opposed
right.
Because don't forget, a sword fight on a film set is rehearsed over and over and over and over again, ad infinitum for weeks before you choreograph it. So it's not just used once a night So I said, yeah. So we had these very expensive swords made. And I said, "If you want me to come up, I will." And I said, "No, we don't need you to come up. We're just going to replace the swords. We'll try it with these." And I called the stage manager and the management sometime afterwards just to let, Eric know that they had been delivered and they were there waiting to be used, all that kind of stuff. And I spoke to the company manager and said, "So you got this?" So I said, "Yeah." I said, "How are they doing?" He said, "I don't know. They're in the cupboard. They've never been utilized. No, nobody. The guy didn't want to use them." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, it's up to you." But I was asked to help. I'm trying to help. This would solve what I believe is the issue, and they never got used. So it was sat in a cupboard in the production office in Broadway, apparently, and never saw the light of day. I hope they do get used because they were made with love. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No. So you did travel around with Eric and do the whole Monty Python thing. And was that an experience, Mark? Or was it just hard work?
Well, it was hard work, but it was one of those things that you are aware, a bit like Robin, you are aware that you're never going to get to do this again. So you kind of savor all of the moments that you go, this is unique. I mean, standing on the stage at Carnegie Hall with Art Garfunkel, moments like that don't come along very often. Standing on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl with Stevie Wonder, you don't get to do that very often. And so there was many moments where literally I look back on it and go, some of the Pythons turned up and were, got on stage with us. Robin Williams turned up just about everywhere and got on stage with us at every opportunity. So that was an interesting experience. And it was, just to be able to do, nudge, nudge, wink, wink with Eric Idle, or to be the Four Yorkshiremen, hey, drinking Chateau de Châtelet,
Yes, yeah, no.
Oh, we had it off utility shoebox at Middle Road. To be able to do that in front of an audience in San Francisco or Chicago, or wherever, or Toronto was just,
No,
you're never going to get the chance to do that again. So
no, and that would have been, what year was that again?
2000 or 2001 or 99, 2000, something like that. I'd just come back from filming Jules Verne in Canada. So it would have been 2000. Maybe it was 2000.
But you were in Jules Verne's what?
I was the fight coordinator and swordmaster. Secret Adventures of Jules Verne, which was shot in.
Oh, I'm going to. I
know
used to watch that.
It says on IMDb that I only did one episode, but I was there for almost a year of my life.
Because that had Robin of Locksley.
One of my favorite sword fights is in that show. And it was all shot digitally, and they told me, any special effects. And we had one character playing two twin brothers. So Michel Courtemanche was playing two brothers, and he had to be in a sword fight with somebody else. So I had to choreograph the sword fight, and they didn't know how they could make it work. And Tommy Clegg, British director, came to me and said, how can we do this? I said, we have to do it split screen. So I'm going to choreograph the fight. So on one side, you've got one version of Michel Courtemanche, and then the other you've got that, and then we'll split it in the middle. And I'll choreograph the fight. So the fight he's filming with, as we look over his back, he's actually fighting with a double on that side. And then we shoot all of that side, then we shoot this side, and we double him there. And as he's doing that, and I had him literally doing a sword fight. This poor actor that had to do this with two different people across what they call the plains or the fields. So they're crossing the fields. The only thing they couldn't do was have the sword blades cross the fields, because now you have to paint that in digitally. So I had to choreograph it so the blades never actually left the split screen fields. And I have to say we did it, and it worked. It looked fantastic. I was very pleased with it.
I'm really beginning to think the reason you are definitely a hands-on learner and a problem solver. And this has also led to your success, because you watch something, you watch them do it, you figure out how to do it, and then when you have to do it yourself, you put all those things together to come up with a solution.
Yeah,
that's the secret to your luck, I think.
A lot of it was, to be honest with you, it was some of my time in the military, because you're constantly given problems to solve. And I remember one absolutely clear time when we were given an obstacle to climb over, and there was, I wouldn't say there was panic, but and I went off to the side, and I was looking at this physical challenge of how to cross this thing with what we had, which is, it's a three-dimensional puzzle, basically. How can we do this? And I just waited, and there was a lot of panicking going on. And eventually, and I know it's probably one of the reasons why I was successful in what I did with that business. And I went, okay, stop. Here's what we're going to do. So I explained what we were going to do. And the sergeant that was in charge, he went, all right, you do it. You do it, smart ass. So I did.
Sergeants.
I physically did what I was telling them I was going to do, which would have, if it had gone wrong, would have ended up me in the drink. You know what I mean? Up to my, whatever, in freezing cold water in the middle of nowhere. And anyway, I did it, which required me to walk backwards over a plank suspended on a 50-gallon drum in the middle of a river. And then they passed me the ammo box. Then they passed me the other plank, which then I was able to put on the thing to go to the other bank. And then I walked backwards across this plank up in the air over this body of water, and managed to do it. And so I got to the side. But there you go. So it is yes, thank you.
Even though I almost died. So So you're a hands-on learner. You learn from your experiences, and you're stubborn when somebody dares you.
Never tell a
I
Yorkshireman,
meant that in the best way.
never tell a Yorkshireman you don't want to audition for this. They don't tell us. I was like, that was how I got shamed. I was told not to audition. You never tell a Yorkshireman not to audition. I was like, no,
Or do
no,
anything, I think.
huh?
or not to do anything.
No, I mean,
I think
failure is not. What's the famous Churchill? Failure is not the end. You know,
no. You don't know unless you try, and you learn something from that.
Yeah.
You learn something from everything that you do. Okay, before we go back to human consciousness, I just wanted to make sure that we did discuss the fact that it's the 40th anniversary of Robin of Sherwood.
It is. Yeah.
And there's stuff going on. You have an event, Son of Hern event. Is that what it's called in May?
Burns Arrow. It's basically the follow-on of all of the conventions that were run by Barnaby Eaton Jones. Tony and Jonathan have taken over the mantle to run this, and it's luckily going to be for the 40th anniversary. And we're basically all going. I think even Ray might go this time, and Jason, and I hope obviously Michael goes, but it's going to be quite something, and it's already sold out. It's not a big event. It's a family. We call it the tribe because literally it is almost like a tribal thing, because a lot of the fans and a lot of people involved with the show have very little in common other than the show. And so you get all walks of life, for people who are incredibly well educated and smart to people like me who are just, stumbling along in the dark. You know what I mean?
Yes, Mark. I'm
Yes.
not buying the stumbling, but no, but these people, I mean, you call that a family, a tribe, but the Robin of Sherwood cast, I mean, they come up in your life all the time, and other people that are in your life, like say for example, Arthur, King Arthur, the movie had Ray Winstone from Robin of Sherwood and some other things that you have. John Matthews worked as a consultant that you write your tarots and things. There's that, even though it's been an eclectic life, there is this chord that runs through it. That
it's my greatest gift from the universe that I am thankful for, is that I have had in my life and retain in my life these friendships. And it's my most prized possession, other than obviously, my family and stuff like that, and the work that I've been given to do. That core group of friends, as you may or may not have seen, we all just went off down to the Bahamas to visit Jason Connery. And literally it was 40 years disappeared like that. And we're all still talking to each other exactly the same way as we did on the set, and taking the rise out of it. And it's exactly the same dynamic. It hasn't changed. And I wish everybody had that. It's funny because I said this when we finished Black Sails. I took everybody out to dinner, and we sat around, and I said, I just want to say something to you as a group so you understand this. I hope whatever relationships and friendships that you make in this show stay with you as long as my dynamics and friendships has done with people from Robin of Sherwood. I wish that for you. It's one of the greatest gifts the universe can ever give you, is to have that core of friends that you don't have to explain anything to. You don't have to, Do
you think it's because you were so young when you guys all did Robin of Sherwood? And or do you just think it was the people involved?
Oh, it's funny because I've thought about this a lot. And in fact, we have talked about it. I think we share basically a common humanity and a common way of what we just talked about. I think we have all approached life maybe from different angles, but with the same drive, with the same clarity of emotional response to things. And that sounds like bullshit, but it's true.
No,
that we all have morally we may have gone like this, but eventually we all have a core set of values that we share and are able to recognize in each other. You know that you can trust them. You know they're going to turn up. If you need help, you know they're going to be there for you. And most of it with us is humor. It's our humor. It's the sense of humor and the sense of self-deprecating humor.
Well, humble. No, but I get that sense of humor, so I understand. Some people would take certain things personally, but when you know a group of people and you know that person, it's not. It's just joking around. So it's part of the endearment in a strange, crazy way.
But yeah, the bond we're still the same now as we were 40 years ago, running around in the trees, killing stuntmen. You know what I mean?
So good. No, it's nice that you have that. It's wonderful to see. Before we get back into mysterious things, this household would like to know: do you watch The Curse of Oak Island? Have you ever watched The Curse of Oak Island?
I've seen a bit of it, yes, and I think it's curious, and I think the whole concept of the treasure idea is very interesting about what the origins of the people that were that may or may not have left the gold there.
But do you get excited when they find tree stumps? I don't know if they're ever going to find something.
If you find any more bits of wood or nails that come from the tree, I tune it out, I'm afraid, because it's. I want to get an answer. I'd like to have some insights. I don't really know much about, other than the period of the Templars and stuff like that. I don't know much about Oak Island or the history of it and all that kind of stuff. So I have tried, but it's say Skinwalker and that kind of stuff and UAPs. Obviously, I know a bit more about, and have probably some insights that. I have to be, there's a reason that Lou Elizondo and David Grush are being careful about what they say.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason. It's not. Ooh, you should just tell everybody what you know. They can't do that. And at the moment, within that community, they're ripping each other apart. It's very destructive to me.
I heard there's a lot of controversy going on, which is sad.
Well, to me, it's a waste of energy. Right? There's a very simple reason. If we have developed craft, which I know that we have, that are hypersonic and defy what we think of as the laws of nature, could do things that they didn't think airplanes could do. There's lots of science out there. We're working on a show called Paranormal Patterns. We've developed a show in Los Angeles right now that explains a lot of this. It doesn't explain whether we've been in contact or been contacted by aliens, but a lot of the stuff that is seen, I know what they're from. We know what they are. It's not, I would say it's not rocket science. It's beyond rocket science. So a lot of stuff that's being seen is concepts that have been in development since the 90s when I was involved with the military. I'll just say that, right? So some of the stuff since the 90s that I am aware of that was in development and were flying then are now seen as being, this is a UAP or this. It's not. So there's a reason we are not just releasing that out. We've got hot wars going on at the moment. We've got Russia invading Ukraine. We've got the Houthis sinking ships. We've got a conflict brewing in Taiwan and various other places. There's a reason why the Pentagon is going, stum. We don't want anybody else to know that we have this capability. And I keep going back to the Manhattan Project, and I keep going back to D-Day, because I keep trying to say to people, if we announced, we're going to have D-Day on this day and this is how we're going to do it, we wouldn't have, been successful in World War II.
No, yeah, you need to keep some things quiet. It's not about hiding them from people because you want to get away with things. It's about saving lives.
Right.
It's about, let's just have to do this once without engaging more people and more time and more resources and more things. There there is that. I think secrecy in those situations are necessary, and they don't bother me. And I also think sometimes that we underestimate the abilities of humanity and what they can do. Um there's like some very, very intelligent people, and they've been working on things for a very long time, and it is in their grasp, as you say, to make these things happen. So so when what it so your show is in, they're checking it out right now down in
We're working.
LA.
It's been in development for a while, and it all came about because some folks that I know back there were basically, "Do you have a clue what this is? Do you understand?" And I said, "Yes," and I explained it to them. And I said, "But here's the rules," and this is where the wheels come off. And I'll just say this, and folks who are watching this, either from Skinwalker Ranch or from any other show, here are the rules. It's very simple. If you learn something while you were had a clearance, a high clearance, whether a top secret clearance or whatever, or an NDA, I happen to have signed both the Official Secrets Act several times and the Special Forces confidentiality contract. There's actually a contract. So I can't say anything that I learned during the period of that service because I would be in breach of that agreement. However, if you said to me, there's a page on Wikipedia and it's got a thing about a triangle or about, a tic tac or whatever, do you have a clue what that is? And I can say yes. And I say, this is something that's been in development since the 90s or whatever. And this is how probably it works. I can't give you the details. I'm not allowed to do that, but there are certain points of this that, and one of the weird things about Skinwalker is they're all walking around with their cell phones strapped to them, unless they're using an encoded system. And then the last one, the one that I was like, you are picking up a frequency, which is a ground to satellite frequency system. It's an Earth-based satellite communication system. And this is somehow a mystery until finally the guy that's supposed to be the ex-CIA agent went, no, it's one of our signals. It's coming from somewhere. They just don't know where. Well, the question would be, well, where's it coming from? Where's it? Why do they ask that question and go, is it coming from beneath us? Is it coming from, why are we picking this up? And then one of the best ones when they actually get a feedback loop, because obviously their cell phones have been hacked and are feeding their conversations back to them. And they're like, oh, it's a mystery. How could that happen? Really?
But this is, as you say, okay, we have to understand that the longer, so like The Curse of Oak Island, if someone watches the one and not the other, the longer that these shows go, the longer we aren't given answers.
Right.
And the narrator just says, could it be that this is a alien? The longer that happens, the more money they make. So they're not going to give answers. It will be and I have a personal, well, we have a running joke about the narrator of Oak Island on here. No, we love the narrator, but we're just saying, we go, could this be like a Templar? There is no proof. There's no
could it have been? Was it? I don't want to do that. I want to get a scientist definitively to look at like a patent for something and go, this could work.
Yeah, so this is a frustration because you want the answers. I agree. When I watch something like that, I want the answers. I don't want the sensationalist. Could this be? Yeah.
Well, the great thing about the patents is, and I know I don't want to sound like arrogant, so that apparently I was in the 1980s. I forget that other people are coming at this from the layman's point of view, and they don't know. There are actually dozens and dozens of patents held by the US Navy, held by Lockheed Martin, held by McDonnell Douglas, that would actually, people would go, oh, really? You can do that then? Or they're trying to do that. They have it in development. And I forget that people don't know that. So our show would be literally about, here's a problem. Can this work? Here's the pattern. Could this work? Can this fly? Can you actually do that? Can you actually beam?
See, and there is a place for that, because definitely, like you, want the answers, want it to come to a conclusion. I don't care what their bank statements are saying. I want it to come to a conclusion. I want some responsibility for something that is on the History Channel. Really?
And then again, I get kind of frustrated because you kind of have this situation where you have like in Skinwalker Ranch or even Oak Island, where there probably is a very simple solution to this, other than keep digging in the same hole. You know what I mean? Getting some ground penetrating radar, stuff like that. But particularly with Skinwalker, they're all walking around and wondering why somebody knows what they're doing because their phone is telling them. They go, oh, you can't do that. How is that happening? God, you should talk to a spook. Honestly, come and chat to somebody who's a spook, and they'll go, yeah, we do that all the time.
I think they are aware, but there is a certain amount of clicks you would get on the computer or in that world if people are scared. And this is one of the things that differentiates Skinwalker Ranch from you can't get scared of tree stumps on Oak Island. That bothers me because scared people do silly things. Mark.
Tree stumps can be extremely dangerous in the wrong hands.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to hear that from someone who worked with Monty Python, but I'm sure they can be in the Monty Python universe.
I want to see a show where they actually solve something, and instead of the going show, we just don't know what. We can't explain it. We don't know. Could it be this? Could it be that? Please solve. Come up with a theory, anything which solves one of the phenomena or one of the issues that you're actually dealing with. I understand you want to drag it out over 5 seasons. I get it. But
speculation has in it. Well, for some of us, you get roped into some things because you just got to see. Okay, is it going to be more than a nail? Could this be steel from a treasure chest? I don't know, Mark.
What is it a belt buckle? Do we know what we know?
Okay, I'm going to do one more question here, and then I think we're going on I want you to Okay, Tamara would like to know, do you find, I'll put up, so after years of reading the tarot, that at times you know the answer before you turn the tarot over, as tarots are a tool to teach reading without the cards? So do you think tarot is just a leading to?
Great question. And the answer is actually kind of the reverse of that. I think sometimes the person that's come to you with the question already knows the answer. And I'll give you an example that happened when I was actually writing Wildwood. I was using the Greenwood Tarot as the model to base this all on, and I was very kindly given access to Robin Gibb of the Bee Gees house in Kensington, so I could sit there because it was a very quiet muse house. It was an artistic house, and I was given free run of this house, so I could sit and concentrate, which you need to do to be just focused and do this. So I did it. They had another house guest that arrived to stay there, a young lady, and I was working on the dinner table. I had all the cards out, and she came to me and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm writing a book about time." She said, "Oh, could you read my cards?" I said, "Sure." So we went through the whole process. I like to break up the deck completely and to think about your question, blah, 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 blah. So we did the bow spread and 7 cards, and it was very clear, I thought, what the answer was. I explained what it was and said, here's what you've got. And she said, "Oh, can I do it again?" I said, "Yeah, if you want." I said, "Not a problem. If it's a different question or you want another aspect of it, we can use that." So we did it again. And out of the shuffling and the redistribution of the deck, I think I got 5 cards
The same
card reading. So we did it again, and I said, "Well, it's basically I don't need to know what the question is." I said, "But whatever you're thinking or focusing on, I said, it's the same elements. They've just kind of moved around a little bit, but these are the elements within it that you need to think about. So she said, would you do it again? I said, all right, we're going to do it one more time. 3 times is enough. I can't do it anymore after this. I get tired, but I said, if you're going to get the same answer. So we did the whole thing again. We broke up the deck, 7 little pile deck thing, numerically did the thing. She shuffled the cards. I didn't touch them. She did the splitting. I didn't touch them. We did the 5 card, and basically again, either 4 or I think it was maybe 4 cards this time. Same out of a 7 card spread came up again, sort of in the same sort of places, but in the same sort of dynamic. And I said, yeah, well, there you go. It's the same. I can't really go any further than what I've told you. This is what is a reflection of whatever the question was that you asked. And I got up to get a glass of wine because I was, what you do? And
creative to help the creativity.
I need, lubrication. And so I went off to do this. And as I was walking, she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, do you know what the question is? And I said, I don't. But I said, but I don't need to. I said, you already know what the answer is. You've already made your decision. You just want me to confirm the elements, whether it's the right. But I said, you've already made the decision. And you're going to do something which you're trying to get me to confirm is the right or wrong thing. And it's not my decision to make. You've already made it. So now you've got to handle it. And that's what the cards are explaining. And she explained to me what the situation was, and yes, and what decision she'd made. And she was regretting it. And that she didn't want to do it specifically, but she'd made the decision to do it out of a certain loyalty. And so the cards know somehow what you've already decided. And all they're going to do is going to go give you a reflection and go, you've already committed to this. These are the elements within the issue that you've,
I have done a reading with Mark, and I asked one question because I didn't really want to get into, but I was really thinking about it at the time. But the cards and Mark pull it out anyways. They know. I mean, I've done that where it said I'm going to be a real not witch, but a word that rhymes with a that day. And I'm like, no way. And so I do it again and they tell me the same thing. And then just sort of experiment at that point in life, I spent the entire day trying to avoid that personality. And at the end of the day, they were all reversed back the way up again. So they know. They always know. The cards always know, I think.
It is bizarre. After I've been doing this for as long as I have, it still is bizarre to me that sometimes the relevance of what you're looking at, and it shouldn't be, because really the cards, I say this to people, there's no magic in the cards. The cards are a reflection of the human personality and the traits within a human personality and the universe around you. So you're going to get a response that you can relate to. No matter what you do, it's going to come back. And Jungian synchronicity is going to bring you something which is relevant to the question you've asked. So it's no real magic. The magic's in here.
No, I always say I don't know how they work, but they work. I'm not a person that, as long as something's working, I'm not going to question it, right? Because if the car is working, if I question it, it costs me money. So, I'm not going to do that with anything else. Okay, Mark, we're coming up to 2 hours now. So I think that I can
like that.
It just goes, Fika just goes so fast. I was thinking about the first day and I was nervous to talk to you. And then after 4 hours of talking and we had 2 shows in the can, I was like, but I thank you so much for that, because it was very encouraging. If Mark Ryan would talk to me, then why does anybody else matter?
Didn't you get a massive response online? Wasn't it huge? You got like 250,000 views or something, didn't you? So it was
on SoundCloud. Yeah, I think it was, but that's you too. I mean, it helps to have a Mark Ryan as a guest. So I'm sort of past the whole, it's Mark Ryan now. I can just talk to you.
He's going to say something bonkers. He's going to say something. People are going to go, what?
No. I am almost over the Johnny thing from the cop show now. So that's good. I got that out of my system. And
Phantom of the
yeah,
Opera. I played Mott the Psycho. I've played a few nutters in my time. Trust me. You know.
but they were just maniacs. They weren't punks. Okay, Johnny was a bully. And you're chewing that gum and you have that accent. I'm just like, oh my God, stop.
A
So,
little story about that, if we got time.
oh, okay. Okay.
So
We'll go.
I was actually, when we were shooting those scenes with the other actor, who was a lovely bloke whose name has escaped me, we were sitting chatting, waiting to shoot, and we got talking about careers and stuff like that. And he was telling me about doing live plays. On this, he started his career doing armchair theatre that was live, camera setups in a studio. It went out live on the BBC. You're doing a play, you're doing a show live, not taped.
Yes.
So he was doing that, and he was telling me about. He'd been involved with plays like Kathy Come Home, which was about unwanted pregnancies and stuff like that, which in the 60s were revolutionary.
Yeah. No, they were.
Yeah, and one of the other ones he'd done, which was Son of Man, I think it was Colin Blakely playing Jesus, who was a angry Jesus and stuff like that. It was fantastic, and he was talking about. And I actually said to him, "Golden age of television." That really was the golden age of television. And we had this long conversation about, risk taking and why people don't do that anymore, and why the industry has changed and blah, 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 blah. And as we'd gone in and I was going to shoot another scene, I was just stood there waiting. And there was a kid there, there was an extra that was dressed up as a police officer. And as I was stood there just waiting to be called onto the set to go in to shoot these other scenes with the police officers, he looked at me and he said, "You're Mark Ryan, are you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You were in that Robin of Sherwood?" I said, "Yeah, 3 years of my life. It was fantastic." He went, "That was the golden age of television. You'll never make that again." I said, "I know." So there.
No, because we're all about the visuals and the special effects and the it's not so much about the creativity as the I think things are going to go back to that, though. I think people are getting tired of these huge things, or maybe that's just my wishful thinking, because I sort of like that off the cuff kind of.
Well, I think the change in the industry is that the independent filmmakers, that's why I'm involved with the industry in the Netherlands, is the independent.
That's right, you're making that happen.
Yeah, and the Grail film that I'm also involved with about
I want to see that.
These are all independent filmmakers that are pushing different ideas and new ideas and new ways to make the film, get it completed. So it's quite an exciting time in some ways. There's still the formulaic stuff. There'll always be that, because they know that sells to a certain audience. Mm-hmm. But the young filmmakers coming up now that are trying different things, different stories, that you go, okay, yeah, I can get into that.
It's like two sides, right? Like your sword story, your sword pun. I'll never forgive that. No, but it's the technology has opened up so much to people who do learn through experience and solving problems on hand, for people who don't have the money behind them, for people. I mean, that's what Fika is all about. Get those indie authors out there, those indie presses now, the indie movies, because there's a ton of voices out there and it's global, and it's a way for everybody to get to tell their story.
Yep.
That's and that makes us sound intelligent, so we'll end the show on that. I've got practice bringing it back around. So I'll just leave you there while I do the closing, and then I'll bop us up because we're almost there. So thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for visiting again. And for the rest of you, I'll see you next week. May your coffee be hot and your stories sweet. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bless you. Take care.
No, now I forgot to put the music up, Mark. Okay, here we go.